Good morning. Good to see you all here. We are in Judges chapter 12 this morning, if you'd like to turn there. We have had 2 lessons already on Jephthah, and last week was the very sad story of how he sacrificed his daughter, having made a vow. And this week we kind of wrap up Jephthah. There are actually some final events here, and then we will get a brief summary of 3 more judges. We often refer to these guys as minor judges because there's not much information on them. But that's the second half of this chapter. This chapter is only 15 verses. Let me throw up a little timeline here. So we are at the end of the judges period. We are in this, Jephthah was fighting with the Ammonites, and they oppressed Israel for 18 years. That oppression seems to overlap the 40-year oppression of the Philistines, and of course, this ends with the coronation of Saul as king. We know that's not the end of battles with the Philistines, but it's, for thematic purposes, it marks the end of Philistine oppression, if you will. Then we have Jephthah, and he would actually be at the start here, our 3 minor judges, and after this we get Samson. So, I'm not going to be here next week. Thank you, Matt. He's going to sub for me. I'm going to be up in Michigan. And then the week after that is the first Sunday of July, and I won't be teaching then. But the next week, I'll come back, and we'll start in with Samson. And Samson is the final judge. His judgeship seems to overlap these other guys that I've got in yellow up here. But you'll notice Samson doesn't end the book. And if you're not real familiar with it, what happens is we go back then for 2 episodes. We go back chronologically. We have chapters 17 and 18, where the Danites migrate up to the north. And that's chronologically in about the middle of this judges period. And then the last section in the book returns almost to the start, chapters 19 to 21. That's the Benjamite War, where the tribe of Benjamin is almost wiped out because of their evil behavior with the Levite and his concubine. So let us jump in here. I guess I could have, you have something similar to this on your handout, just to give you an idea of, this is Jephthah, and then these 3 minor judges, Ibzan, Elon, and Abdon. One of the reasons I like to put things like this up here, you can see Samson down below them, roughly contemporary. I've faded the edges because we don't have precise dates for him. We'll talk about that more when we get to him. But these guys are all pretty much contemporary with the life and ministry of Eli and with the boyhood of Samuel. So that, I think, is interesting. And actually, the boyhood of Saul, we don't know exactly when Saul or Samuel were born, what year, but they would have been kids while these minor judges, and even Jephthah and Samson, while they were judges. So they may have been boyhood heroes, idols for these men that we come to know quite well later on. Okay, Judges chapter 12, and let's jump in here with verse 1. Let me say a couple words just briefly first. We have just ended, so the last thing in chapter 11 deals with Jephthah's sacrifice of his daughter. But the bigger scene is that Jephthah and the Israelites, the people in Gilead, had defeated the Ammonites. Big battle. So that's going to play in here in chapter 12. So verse 1, Then the men of Ephraim were summoned, and they crossed to Zephon and said to Jephthah, Why did you cross over to fight against the sons of Ammon without calling us to go with you? We will burn your house down on you. And Jephthah said to them, I and my people were at great strife with the sons of Ammon. When I called you, you did not deliver me from their hand. And when I saw that you would not deliver me, I took my life in my hands and crossed over against the sons of Ammon, and Yahweh gave them into my hand. Why then have you come up to me this day to fight against me? Wow. This is not the only time the tribe of Ephraim does something like this. But what's the offense? You didn't call us to join you in battle. What's that? You didn't invite us to the party. And so what are we going to do about it? We're going to kill you guys. Burn your house down. Do battle. Just like, these are Israelites. And this is giving you a picture of Israelite thought. I mean, this is specifically the tribe of Ephraim. Hopefully you've picked that out here. Right in the middle of the country, Benjamin just to the south. All of this battle with the Ammonites has taken place right across the Jordan River. Wow, yeah. Just show you a couple shots of Ephraimite country today. The site you see in the center here is ancient Shiloh, and that's where the tabernacle was located. So this is the southern end, looking off to the north. For a while, they thought maybe the tabernacle was once located on this bench on the north end, but they've been doing excavating here. They've excavated this place, well, they're in their third cycle now, something back in the 60s, something in the 80s-ish, and now they're excavating up here again. And they've actually found a structure that appears to have the dimensions of the tabernacle. You think the tabernacle was a tent made out of fabric. Jewish sources tell us that once it was installed here at Shiloh, they actually put a stone foundation around the bottom to make it more permanent. And in fact, there are some hints to that same effect in 1 Samuel, where we have things like Eli sitting at the door of the tabernacle. The original tabernacle had no door. It was all fabric. And so there are some other hints like that too. But Timnath-Serah, up in the hill country, it's pretty steep. Did you guys drive through any of this? Did you go to Shiloh? Okay, yeah, so you know what this hilly country is like. It reminds me a little bit of the Ozarks without many trees. Kind of beautiful country. But they cross over the Jordan River. This is looking eastward, roughly from the tribal territory of Ephraim. You can see the Jordan River kind of meandering through here. There are these steep, less kind of hills, and then this is Gilead off to the east. And so they crossed over the Jordan. We don't know exactly where. The text tells us that it mentions the name Zephon, and we're not even 100% sure where that's at. This map has it, so there is a ford here at Abdon, and we think Mitzpah of Gilead was probably about over here. That's a place that comes up numerous times in the Jephthah cycle. So this map has it just north of the ford at Abdon. I think it's probably more likely that Zephon is further north. Do I have pictures? Yes, I do. So this is that flat valley along the Jordan River, and you can see the Tel in the distance. It's known today as Tel Mazar. But that I think is most likely the location of this Zaphon. So they tell him, "We're going to burn your house down on you. You are such an evil person, we're going to destroy you." And of course, his response, "I called you and you didn't come. You just made it in the shade." The text doesn't tell us if that actually happened. The text never says he went and called for the Ephraimites, but that's his claim here. Whether that's true or whether he's being diplomatic is a little hard to discern. Either one, I think, is a possibility. So his first response, Jephthah's first response here, is diplomacy, or an attempt at diplomacy. "This isn't making sense, guys." Well, they don't listen to him. So back to our text, verse 4, Judges 12:4. "Then Jephthah gathered all the men of Gilead and fought Ephraim. And the men of Gilead defeated Ephraim, because they said, 'You are fugitives of Ephraim, O Gileadites, in the midst of Ephraim, in the midst of Manasseh.' And the Gileadites captured the fords of the Jordan opposite Ephraim. And it happened when any of the fugitives of Ephraim said, 'Let me cross over,' the men of Gilead would say to him, 'Are you an Ephraimite?' If he said no, then they would say to him, 'Say now, Shibboleth.' But he said, 'Sibboleth,' for he could not pronounce it correctly. Then they seized him and slew him at the fords of Jordan. And there fell at that time 42,000 of Ephraim. And Jephthah judged Israel 6 years. When Jephthah the Gileadite died and was buried in one of the cities of Gilead." Okay. So, we don't know exactly, again, which ford it was that was captured. Yes, Bill? Oh, really? A pronunciation thing? Really? Interesting. A way to differentiate culture apart from just straight up looks. Yeah. That's interesting. Uh, the W and the V. Oh, that's interesting. I read American forces in the Pacific Theater when they ran across, I don't know if it was a challenge in the dark from outside or whatever, but for Asians, they would ask them to say Lollapalooza. And they can't typically pronounce the L, and so they would give an R instead. Raraparuza. And yep. So yeah, this is it's an interesting. Yeah, that northeastern accent. Sorry, Ron, we love you, man. So again, we don't know exactly where this ford was that was captured. This reminds us a little bit of Gideon and his army that captured the fords to slaughter enemies as they came through. Sons of the East, help me out here. It's not the Amalekites. No, not the Ammonites. Sorry, I distract you here. This is Jordan River, 1890s. Reminds me a little bit of the Nishnabotna or something around here that's, decent-sized river, not a Missouri River. So fords were typically places that were shallow and had a rocky bottom, and the banks were not terribly steep. It's not that you couldn't swim across somewhere else, but other places tended to there wasn't a road. So there was just dense undergrowth right up to the edge. Trying to get a group across would just be a disaster, and that's why people headed toward the fords. In fact, here you can actually see, if you got good eyes, you can see the roads that cross right here as evidence of that. In more recent times, they sometimes used barges. I mean, today there are bridges across, but they may have done something like this even in antiquity. This word shibboleth, we're not entirely certain what that word means. It could mean flowing water, like a stream or a brook. It could actually, some folks think it means heads of grain. We're not entirely certain. This is an ostrakhan, you know what an ostrakhan is? Potsherd that's been inscribed. In this case, it's been scratched in, not ink. And can you read the alphabet there? No, you can't, because it's a poor picture. So I'll put in some highlights. And the shin is the next to the last letter right here. It kind of looks like a W on its side or something like that. And in modern Hebrew even, shin and sin are the same letter, just with a dot on opposing sides. So if you take that dot away, if you look at any ancient manuscript that doesn't have the pointing, you can't actually tell the difference visually between sh and s. And apparently they had different traditions on how to pronounce this particular word as well. And when they gave a bad response, they were slaughtered there. It's not clear to me, and I'm reflecting some of the guys I've read too, that 42,000 is actually 42,000, because there are other ways that word thousand can be used. That doesn't mean thousand, it means military unit. And so it could be 42 military units were slaughtered. 42,000 people seems like an excessive number to kill at a ford on a day. You'd think at some point the bodies would stack up and people would begin to go around or get an idea this isn't the best place to cross. But anyway, regardless of whether you take that as 42,000 or 42 military units, it was a significant slaughter. And the Gileadites really seem to have come out on the top here. So Jephthah died, 6 years. That's not very long. He seems like a younger man. It's not like he's in his 80s or something. It comes to my mind, he has sacrificed his daughter. Where's his life going from here? And from that perspective, it doesn't surprise me that he doesn't live a whole lot longer beyond this. The text gives no indication of why he died. Heart attack, fight over a card game, I don't know. But he only lived another 6 years and then died. This is some of the hilly country around Gilead. Looks like we've got olive groves in the foreground. And the text, again, does not tell us where he was buried. And perhaps if it did name the city, we would be like, oh, we don't know where that is anyway. But one of the cities in Gilead. Daniel Block thinks that this is the ethical and spiritual low point of the book based on its location, kind of in the center of the book. And thematically that may be correct. And of course we know, so we're kind of in the same time as the whole Samson saga chronologically, and we know that this eventually leads into kingship. Eventually, it's not very far away as far as number of years. But it does seem like things have really gone down. Now that's, at the same time, I look at his comment and I'm like, well, go back to the start of the Judges period and we have a Sodom-like event that takes place. Men of a city that rape and kill a woman that's visiting, and then her husband cuts her up and sends her out to call in troops. I mean, just, can you think of a worse event than something like that? And so from that perspective, I'm like, well, is this actually the low point? I'm not sure. There's a lot of low points in this book. He also highlights the fact that Jephthah here appears as an independent male. He lacks a father. I mean, his father is named, but he gets rejected by his father and brothers. He doesn't have any brothers, I mean half-brothers, but he doesn't have a son. He seems to really lack godly role models, and those things together seem to have had a significant impact on the way Jephthah lived his life. And I think I'm going to leave that there. Jump into these three minor judges. I don't think I listed this. No, I didn't. So I'll just tell you. Just a couple observations about these three guys, and their tenures are all short. The longest is 10 years. I guess I could throw up this timeline again. It's 10, I think 10 and 6, 10 and 8 and 6. None of them is there any specific enemy mentioned, which is not like the other judges we've got. They each judge in different places, and on the back of your handout, you've got the locations of those guys identified. So they seem to be local in nature. Part of their purpose here, like why are they included, seems to be just chronological. If we're going to get down to the time of the judges, these guys fill in the chronology. The time of the judges, the time of the kings, these guys fill in the remaining chronology. Each one of them is said to have judged Israel, but there's never any mention made of God's involvement. Now that could be because the accounts are so brief, but it's a little bit remarkable. It wouldn't have been hard to say, then God raised up Ibzan, something like that. We don't have that kind of statement. So, we start off with Ibzan, verse 8. Now, Ibzan of Bethlehem judged Israel after him, after Jephthah. And he had 30 sons and 30 daughters, whom he gave in marriage outside the family, and he brought in 30 daughters from outside for his sons. And he judged Israel 7 years. Then Ibzan died and was buried in Bethlehem. I don't think so, Tricia. Did he judge the whole 12 tribes? I mean, yeah.
He wasn't judging everybody either.
Right.
So
Right, Jephthah's just that eastern side.
So was Ibzan just that area then too? Maybe.
That, most people seem to think that that's correct, that these guys are relatively local. We'll,
We're not taught who is judging the rest of the country.
yeah, what's going on in the rest of the country? Do we, no, I don't see it here. So maybe I'm looking back at, thinking back to Gideon, who had, was it Gideon? Help me out here, guys. That had sons that ruled numerous cities.
Gideon had 70 sons and 70 daughters.
Yeah. Sorry, my mind is blanked here. There's a judge in here whose children ruled over like 30 cities. That's not ringing a bell with you either. Yeah, a little bit. Okay. I'll kick myself later on, but so things like that would indicate locality. And I mean, Jephthah, he's clearly not judging as a governor over Ephraim. They're coming in conflict. So yeah. There's a real question here about which Bethlehem is in view. When you hear Bethlehem, you automatically think Bethlehem in the tribe of Judah, where David was from, where Jesus was born. And that is certainly a possibility. That's down here in the south. It's 5 miles south of Jerusalem. We know of at least one other Bethlehem, which is up in Galilee. And this is kind of interesting because Elon, our next judge, is a Zebulonite. So were these guys in the same area, or were they at opposite extreme ends of the country? It's not entirely clear. This is a sign up by the Galilean Bethlehem, and you can even read there, Beit Lechem. That's the name Bethlehem. Even today. Obviously, it's not nearly so well known as the Bethlehem down south in Judah. This is an aerial view of Bethlehem. If I gave you a modern aerial shot of this, it's just houses and not much fun to look at. But here you can actually see some topography. You can see the Church of the Nativity there and the approximate outline of the Iron Age village of this period. So we don't know exactly where he judged. I'm going to go with what we've got on the map here down in the south, but realize it's possible he was up in the north as well. Another indicator how little info we've got on these guys. There's not even a tribe mentioned in connection with him. And he had 30 sons, 30 daughters. He shipped his daughters out, presumably for political marriages. And he shipped in women for his sons. Why would a person do that? Power. Yes. Connections, political marriages, attempting to establish a broader power base. Yeah.
Alliances.
Yeah, alliances.
You don't want to attack them,
Did Elon say something against them?
It's a little hard to tell, Tricia, who these outsiders are. Are they outside the clan, but still Israelites? Or are they actually non-Israelites? It's not real clear. I think most of the guys I read thought outside the clan, but it's possible. And I mean, how many cases do we know where Israelites, and even famous Israelites, married foreign women? I mean, there are innocuous ones, or even providential ones like Ruth, Moabitess, Moses, David, Solomon. I mean, yeah. I don't know what else to say about that. Let's see here. Verse 11. Elon, the Zebulonite, judged Israel after him. He judged Israel 10 years. Then Elon the Zebulunite died and was buried at Aijalon in the land of Zebulun. Interesting. So let me give you a map that has the tribal territory of Zebulun highlighted. It's in the hills just north of the Jezreel Valley. It would include Nazareth, the ancient and modern city of Nazareth. And we have no mention of descendants. Did he have kids? Did he not have kids? Not a word is said. That's why I pictured him as a single guy, whereas the previous one had kids standing around. This is the Beit Netophah Valley, which is in the area of Zebulun, would have been one of their bread baskets. And we have basically no other information on the guy. Even the city that he's buried in, you may be familiar with the city name Aijalon, but it's not in Zebulun. We have a much better known Aijalon right down here in the city of Dan, not too far from where Samson will arise, but it's not that Aijalon. And so there's one up here somewhere in Zebulun. We don't have any idea where that's at.
So we can assume that he was a wonderful judge because
Nothing
nothing happened.
happened. I mean, it's possible that these do represent locations and periods of peace.
Yeah.
There was an Israelite judge there, and so there's not Ammonites or Amalekites or Canaanites or, there's not other people coming in because there is a governor, a leader. But yeah, so little information. Verse 13, Abdon, the son of Hillel, the Pirathonite, say that fast 3 times, judged Israel after him. And he had 40 sons and 30 grandsons who rode on 70 donkeys. That's one apiece. And he judged Israel 8 years. Then Abdon, the son of Hillel, the Pirathonite, died and was buried at Pirathon in the land of Ephraim in the hill country of the Amalekites. What's going on with 40 sons and 30 grandsons riding donkeys?
There's a lot of donkey talk in this
There's a lot of donkey talk in this book. Yeah.
book. Is it like, they all had a Corvette?
Yeah. In fact, it might even go past that a little bit because riding a donkey in this day was often associated with royalty. Jesus rode a donkey into Jerusalem. Now that's 1,000 years later, but
What does that prophecy said though?
it's the same concept.
The prophecy about coming in.
That's one of the minor prophets, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that'd be 600 years before Jesus, not quite this early. But, I mean, you see the concept in the ancient Near East as well, kings riding on donkeys. It's actually really rare in ancient art to see a guy riding a horse. That does occur, but more often horses were used to pull chariots. They weren't viewed as riding animals. But donkeys were, and that's what happens here. To us, that comes across as kind of cheesy. You're riding a donkey, really? It doesn't seem very royal. But in this day and age, that was a thing.
Donkeys are shorter than the horses usually,
Yeah,
and so their feet can touch the ground.
yeah, drag their souls along the way.
That area.
It's a person from Pirathon, and that's a city.
In what tribe? I guess I missed.
Yep.
Sorry.
No, you asked a good question. Well, so he's identified with Ephraim, and on this map you'll see Pirathon is in southern Manasseh, and I don't know how comfortable you'll be with this, but those borders seem to flex a little bit. So I don't struggle with having a map like this and saying, yeah, Pirathon is in northern Ephraim. because they weren't as line-ish as we like to think of borders. But yeah, just you see Shechem is not far from this, right up here. That's where Abimelech had his big fiasco. Son of Gideon killed all his brothers, took over the city, destroyed the city. So some interesting history here, and that hadn't been that long ago. Here's a little bronze model of a guy riding on a donkey. He looks oversized to me, but it's not an uncommon thing. Okay. Did I get... Yes, Pirathon, the place where he died. Okay, good. I got a little bit of time yet. So, what is it that has gone wrong? I mean, we're coming chronologically to the end of the Judges period, and we've seen a lot of bad. And I want to suggest a couple of things for you here. Moses, this is not something that's gone wrong, but it's moving that direction. Moses thoroughly instructed the Israelites, and you go back and, read Exodus, Leviticus, Deuteronomy. He's giving the law, and he's not just writing it down in private and storing it in the tabernacle. He's teaching the people explicitly, this is what God requires of you. The Israelites were supposed to diligently teach their children these things. Deuteronomy 6, you're probably familiar with this passage. It's the Shema. It comes from the first word in the Hebrew, Shema, listen, hear, O Israel. Yahweh is our God. Skip down to verse 7. Your children, you shall teach them diligently to your sons. Talk to them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, when you lie down, when you rise up. He's trying to say constantly, don't think you can do a one-time instruction for your kids in the law and you're covered. Keep repeating it and be diligent about it. That was instruction for the Israelites. A very similar statement in Deuteronomy 11. Teach them to your sons, talking to them when you sit in your house, when you walk along the road, when you lie down, when you rise up. In case you didn't get it in Deuteronomy 6, now we get it repeated. So the Israelites were to do that diligently. And it appears that fundamental instruction has generally not taken place in either the home or the community. If it had, I don't think we would have the situations that we see here in Judges. It seems like instruction is not taking place. That kind of leads to the question, at least in my mind, where are the priests in all of this? Because the priests were supposed to be judges. You have an issue that needs resolved, you take it to a Levite or go to the tabernacle but there were judges in the Levitical city spread throughout the nation for that purpose. Deuteronomy 17. You shall come to the Levitical priest or the judge who's in the office in those days, inquire of them. They will declare a verdict in your case. You shall do according to the terms of the verdict, which they declare to you from the place which Yahweh chooses. And you shall be careful to observe according to all that they teach you. This is the Levites, the priestly tribe. According to the terms of the law which they teach you, and according to the verdict which they tell you, you shall do. In other words, obey them. Of course, the prerequisite is they teach, right? So don't turn aside from the word that they declare to you to either the right or the left. Deuteronomy 33, of Levi, he said, this is Moses, may your Thummim and your Urim belong to your godly men, whom you tested at Massah, and with whom you quarreled at the waters of Meribah, who said of his father and his mother, I did not consider them. He did not acknowledge his brothers, nor did he regard his own sons. In other words, they weren't distracted by commitment to broader family, other tribes. They were committed to God. For they observed your word and kept your covenant. They shall teach you your ordinances to Jacob and your law to Israel. They shall put incense before you and whole burnt offerings on your altar. Of course, we know that's standard Levitical stuff, but this teaching was a critical part of what the Levites were supposed to do. Is that happening?
There's not a difference between Jacob and Israel, right?
No, it's poetic repetition. Yeah, just like law and ordinance are the same thing. Mhm.
So, to me, this is like the Dark Ages, for the same reasons. The Dark Ages were dark because the church kept the Word of God to itself
Yeah,
and said everything in Latin, for example. There was no dissemination of the Word of God.
yeah,
And same thing here. It seems to be Satan's playbook.
yeah, yeah, yes. And I can't help but think, I mean, why is it that parents are not teaching their kids? Why is it that Levites, priests, are not teaching the people? Doesn't it just come down to flat out disobedience? It's not like God hadn't told them what to do, and they didn't do it.
Demonic influence.
And where do you think that's going to lead? Well, we see it unfold here. Turn that around. Look in the mirror. Here we are as parents. Here we are as a church. Here we are as a nation. Are we teaching this stuff to the next generation? Are we being taught? It's the same thing. If we abandon this stuff, guess where it leads? Yeah. Yeah.
So could you speak, make it modern, and the pastors of the churches today, are they being the Levites teaching their people the
Yeah.
true word of God? Because you can't teach your children what you don't know yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I see that a lot now, where kids just are not knowing anything about it.
Yeah.
And their parents don't, and churches maybe aren't teaching fully.
I kind of like the phrase biblically illiterate. Well, I don't like it. I think it's descriptive. People just don't know anything about what the text says. And there's a whole spectrum of that, but all you can do is yourself. You can read this, learn this, study it, listen to it, immerse yourself in it, or you can not. And we have influence over our kids, not to the point that we can determine what happens with them, but
There's an amazing lack of curiosity over the book that invented Western civilization.
yeah, that's true, John. Make a couple of observations here and then I'll wrap it up. There's no explicit approval or condemnation of any of these three minor judges. There's just no moral evaluation of them at all. It's just, here they were, here's how long they judged,
How many donkeys?
and how many donkeys they had, how many
How many
kids.
children, so obviously they had more than one.
Yeah, okay, so that's actually my second point. We've got two of these guys that have a bunch of kids. And to repeat, what does that imply? A bunch of wives. And why does the text bring out this fact? What is it that they are trying to accomplish by having many wives and many kids? Power. In fact, I might go so far as to say aspirations to dynasty. I'm going to build a strong house and my kids will rule after me. If that's not the case, what's the purpose? reading between the lines a little bit there. And then finally, this is my opinion, these short tenures, what do we have, 7 years, 8 years, and 10 years? When you combine that, well, in Jephthah 6, when you combine that with some of this stuff that, I mean, the many kids, at first blush, you're like, why do we need to know that? But if it is actually giving us that nudge, that hint that I think it is, then the evaluation here is pretty negative about this period at the end of the Judges. There's nothing positive said, and there's implication of negativity, I think. And then we'll get Samson, who's contemporary with these guys, and that's a mixed bag. But we'll jump the gun then. Okay, so just a couple of points here. We are born sinners. Don't underestimate that. That explains so much here. You let these weeds just grow, this is what you get. And it's because we have a heart issue at the point of conception. It's, in many ways, it's the problem of Judges. The book of Judges is our innate bent toward evil. We produce evil without effort. It's just natural to us. We don't have to try. And I think we see that here. If you don't understand that about yourself and about the people around you, you're doomed. That is such a base character trait of people. So, whatever that's worth. And then second point here. Our two best defenses are personal devotion and instruction. And I grant me a little grace on this. I realize there's a bunch of other things you could throw into this bag. The work of God, the paying attention to the law, those kinds of things. I mean, I'm not trying to be absolute here, but I think we see a lack of personal devotion on the part of Israelites generally, and we do definitely see a lack of instruction as well. So if you're looking for an antidote to the result we see in Judges, these are two I would recommend. Devote yourself to God personally and work on instruction. Instruct others, be instructed, look for instruction. It'll make your life better. Read the book of Proverbs. Any final thoughts, questions, comments? Okay. I'll pray. Lord, thanks for your word. Some difficult things here in the book of Judges, things that seem mysterious to us in some ways, and yet there are other things that are quite clear and obvious. We see your hand working through your people despite them. We see your patience for sure in the things that unfold here. We don't want to be like the generation we're reading about here, and we know that is our natural bent. Proclivity is to be sinful like them, and so we ask for your grace in our lives. Pray that you would nudge us when we are tempted by sin. When we fall into sin, I pray that we would be quick to clear that account with you, to ask for your forgiveness, which we know you offer so freely. We just ask for your strength and grace as we continue this journey, and ask that you would bless us as we make an effort to be good servants of yours. In your name I pray. Amen.